Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this morning's episode of Trending, brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. If you head over to shop.iconic.com and use the code TRENDING, you get 10% off. I'm joined by Richard Willett. Rich, has anything happened over the weekend, mate?
Just a little. If I've cast my mind back, a little war, rumors of a war, end of times, that sort of stuff.
Just,
It's
yeah.
yeah,
We were talking about this together on Thursday's Trending, because at that point, Israel was saying it was considering preemptive strikes, and we actually made the point while we were talking was no, it's saying it's going to do it. And within, about 12 hours, I think, of us having that conversation, it had already done that, thrown a load of missiles over at Iran. Iran has obviously thrown a load back. This is a headline from this morning. Iran launches fresh airstrikes on Israel as conflict enters fourth day. So normally when these two have at it, which they have done a couple of times, haven't they, over the last sort of 18 months, they'll chuck a missile, they'll chuck one back, and then they'll enter some kind of negotiation again. Well, that's not happening. Where is it standing in your mind at the minute, Rich, in terms of this World War III greater conflict?
yeah. It's to me, it's the dragging everyone in. It's like the bottomless pit of dragging every other nation in. And when we look at these biblical texts of what these guys, we know that behind the likes of Trump, Netanyahu, and perhaps Putin are looking at, they need the nations to rise up against them. This is all in, I think, Zechariah something or other. I'm not a biblical scholar in any way, shape, or form, but they're following a script. And one of the main tenets before their messianic age is that the nations will rise up against Jerusalem, which obviously Israel take to mean them in terms of the biblical text. So this is, to me, is about dragging all the other nations in, mate, and that's quite clearly, if you look at the video that we'll probably play later, is of Netanyahu. He's teasing in, trying to bring Trump into this, and almost begging him, which is a sight to see in itself. They're trying to drag everyone else into their madness, and that was always part of the script. What's your take? What do you think?
I agree. I think we're at the point now where it's like it's the engineering of consent phase. So what I found very interesting, and I did speak about this yesterday, it might have been, or maybe even the day before, on X, where I was making the point that killing people's wrong, right? Period. Bombing people is wrong. Period. Particularly civilian areas. I'm not for killing anyone, but if two soldiers want to go out to some wasteland next to Costco and have a scrap, I don't really care. But when you're firing missiles into civilian areas, obviously I've got a huge problem with that. So
Yep.
what I found odd, though, and somewhat hypocritical, and another example of Western exceptionalism, is that you've got people now rightly outraged by the fact that Iran are firing missiles into civilian areas, these same people having just spent the last 18 months justifying it when it's Israel doing it. That is quite extraordinary to me to watch, to look and see, because a lot of people have been going on X, Rich, and have actually been going back and finding old tweets, just from some of them, just from like a month ago, saying, basically paraphrasing, but essentially, so what if they're bombing civilian areas? There's no innocent people in Gaza. If a certain number of Gazan children have to die, then so be it. To then be going, please pray for us, and you're like, I don't know, mate.
This is the double bind they get you in, and it's the reason is because you're basically choosing between the same two things. And there's a account on there, I think it's called Jackson Hinkle, I think his name is. He looks like he wants to be some sort of James Bond character, crowing about this stuff of Israel getting what they deserve. Well, it's not Israel getting what they deserve, is it? Because Netanyahu's run away to Greece. He's in Athens.
Exactly,
Jesus, what was
exactly,
that?
Rich. That's
Yeah,
the thing, isn't it?
he's in Athens. So it's not, is it? You're firing. Why don't you follow the person that's actually trying to do it? I'm not saying go to Athens, but he's the one, and his cabinet are the ones that are actually doing it. So now, what the Israelis do, hypocritically, after blaming Hamas that they fund, being under hospitals for ages, hiding behind civilians as shields, they put their IDF headquarters in the middle of the city. So when you're going to attack them, you have to attack the civilians around them, or you're at least going to have some sort of outfall from it, because they've done it on purpose. So not only are they using the Israeli government, using the Israelis as a shield, Netanyahu's sodded off to Athens. I
Yeah.
mean, if we went to war and Netanyahu was at the front going, come on, lads, let's all go to war, all going down, they're going to war. Come on, let's go and get them. They're building nuclear bombs. You get there and then your leader's sodded off. You turn around and go, I don't really want to do this anymore. It doesn't make sense.
No.
He's gone off. And I don't understand why it's carrying on. It's go for him, and this will all stop. It doesn't make sense at all. And another just point I want to pick up, just in case I forget it really, is the fact that how can Israel be so precise with their shots on these Iranian chemical plants, but they had to level Gaza to find Hamas? Doesn't make sense. Make it make sense, guys.
Well, I putting my tinfoil hat on, I would suggest that actually Israel doesn't want to destroy all of Iranian infrastructure so they can go in and move in. Because it's not part of the Greater Israel, whereas Gaza obviously is. So it's a completely different thing. It is quite extraordinary.
Gaz, to have the technology to be that pinpoint when you want to, but not when you don't need to.
Yeah, because they don't want to do that with Gaza.
Exactly.
They want to level Gaza. And this is another thing, Rich, is in this 4 days, the number of Iranians killed and the number of Israelis killed, one is too many, just to reiterate that point. But either way, the number of those killed combined is nowhere near the number of people in Gaza that have been killed by Israel in the last 4 days. Yet no one's talking about it anymore. We're all talking about, the escalations into World War III, which is understandable because that's going to affect everyone. And, you've got Trump, this whole situation where again, there's a little bit of irony here because Trump has basically, so we're told, fooled the Iranians. He's made the Iranians believe that he'd had a falling out with Netanyahu, which me and you spoke about at the time and said it was all complete window dressing nonsense, that him and Netanyahu hadn't fallen out at all. Yeah, apparently the Iranians fell for it. So they fell for that, the fact that Trump was a peace president and wanted to negotiate, when the whole time behind the scenes he was telling Netanyahu could do what he wanted, and obviously he went and did that and he bombed Iran. But what's funny and ironic is you've got all these MAGAs coming out now. A lot of them, I have to say, are starting to go, whoa, I didn't vote for this, and fair play to you. But there's a lot of others that are doubling, tripling, quadrupling down, as these people do, because, Trump is their savior and Lord and all this sort of nonsense. Basically laughing about the fact that saying, ha, look how Trump played Iran. Look how Trump made Iran believe that he was a peaceful anti-war president. And you're laughing at someone for doing something to someone that he's done to you. Mm. That's the irony of it. Because you voted for him because he made you believe he was the anti-war peaceful candidate. So actually, while laughing at Iran for being played, you've snookered yourself. Because he's had you on toast as well.
That's the point in the double bind, is you do end up snookering yourself. And that's how they get you. That's why the DNA's got two snakes. The Caducer is two snakes. The whole point is that you do get wrapped up in your own nonsense. You get trapped in it. And that's the, what a tangled web we weave when first we practice to deceive. It's that kind of mentality. They know that. I mean, of course, if me and you figured out that Donald Trump and Netanyahu were having a little game of WWE pretend enemies, I'm sure Iran figured it out. What sort of intelligence agency if two guys in the middle of England can figure it out over a podcast and they can't? But it's ridiculous. So it's nonsense. But the fact is that Mark Rubio comes out on the day and says, we have nothing to do with this. We are, as the US, Mark Rubio comes out, we have nothing to do with this. We don't want to get involved. And then Mark Rubio, at the start of April, has signed his name under a $4 billion contract in arms to Israel. It's the same guy. It's too late. You are involved because you've paid them already months ago. Where do you think they got the money to do this from? So the US is already complicit. So is the UK in a very small way compared to that. You're already involved. You just haven't officially stamped your seal on it. But anyone who does a tiniest bit of research can see that the US, Donald Trump specifically, funded this. And why did he fund this? Because they're all in the same messianic lunatic cult that want World War III. It's really, really simple. We've been talking about this for nearly 2 years now in terms of this end times nonsense. I mean, it's ridiculous to see that Trump's pushing in the chair for Netanyahu, and then we've got a video clip. We'll play it here of Netanyahu saying that Trump's his senior, and he's just a junior partner in this, and Trump's a great leader. Obviously, on one level, he's trying to get Trump to join him there by buttering him up because he knows his ego is so high. But it's ridiculous. Netanyahu's far higher up the Chabad totem pole than Trump is. It's poor, but people just have no idea, mate. They really don't.
No, and the thing is as well, it's like you've got Mark Rubio there saying, we have no interest in going to war. They're all saying that basically, apart from what I thought at the time was basically, if we're going to get a positive from this, then we've probably got the Epstein client list at last, when you saw the immediate number of politicians, US politicians, giving it that I stand with Israel, I stand with Israel, I stand with, all at the same time firing it out. It was like, oh, okay, I get it. But whilst they're saying they don't want war and whatever, I mean, that's starting to change now, because even Trump's saying, well, there's a possibility that we'll enter the war. They're already sending fleets over there. There's a giant fleet already left the US heading for Europe. They've moved their weapons defense systems out of Ukraine, or a number of them out of Ukraine. So then that begs the question, well, again, I'm not a military strategist. Me and you are just two guys in England. But if I'm Russia right now, seeing the US move that out of Ukraine, well, that's a green light to me. So you're going to watch that almost certainly escalate there, where the Russians will go, well, their defense systems have been moved. I'll have at it. And the other thing, I found this interesting, and this will actually probably lead into the story you've got next with the comments about Netanyahu again, is actually the US has moved the USS Nimitz. It's being deployed to the Middle East. Now, this is an aircraft carrier that's 50 years old. 50 years old, and it's set to be retired next year. Now, the US want in this war. Of course they do, because it's all part of the plan. It's all part of this World War III, China, Russia, Iran versus the West play out. But they've basically come from a position of, we don't want the war. Well, something's got to change then, hasn't it? And I think, well, World War II, you didn't want to have the war because you'd spent so much money in the First World War. The American people were done with it and basically elected that the president on the premise of, we will not get involved in any more European wars. Then suddenly Pearl Harbor happens to happen, and suddenly then the Americans are in. They wouldn't have supported the project for the new American century and any countless wars in the Middle East had 9/11 not happened. So I look at this, Rich, and I see the fact that they want in the war because they're moving the fleets into the area, and all it takes is for a false flag to happen, and suddenly you'll find a lot of anti-war Americans are suddenly on the front line chanting death to Iran, mate.
Yeah, it was that consent, isn't it? They need to get that consent. The thing is, I don't think they're going to get it now, because we go back to them times, the Second World War. And I really do think that they've screwed themselves up by, we've got the internet now. It's such a different ball game that in terms of information shared around the world. And I know it's not perfect. Everybody has their issues with the internet, and then it's a two-way street. Everything's got positive and a negative to it. But they can't get away with that sort of blanket brainwashing like they used to. There's too many people. Remember, X isn't everything. X isn't the world. Just because we see it on X doesn't mean everybody in the street is thinking the same thing. And I think we need time to forget that as well when we do this sort of work. I mean, that's nothing. That's not what the people down the pub are talking about. They ain't got a clue, but they don't care about what, Alex Jones is saying, or even what I'm saying. They're just getting on with their lives, but they certainly don't want war. So I think we need to remember that. But because we've got the internet now, the amount of information, people's global awareness is so different from what it was back in World War II and World War I, that I don't think that really is a play that they can use like they used to. You might get a few 100,000, Republican Americans going along that we want war because you've sunk an old battleship, but you're not going to get the consent you did back at Pearl Harbor, even 9/11, because the world has changed. And that's just my opinion, but I think it makes sense.
I hope you're right. I mean, I think what they've used, and this answers the question, I think we're starting to see the answer to the question that we've been asking for some time, which is why suddenly has religion re-entered the room. Bearing in mind, religion's always been around, of course it has, but in terms of the alternative, in terms of the free thinking people, so your alternative medias, people that would speak out against the establishment, they would generally either anti-religion or blasé towards religion. They would understand that organized religion was basically a way to control the masses for millennia. And now, maybe there's different ways of control, but religion was what they used before you had AI and the surveillance state and all this kind of stuff. Religion was what was used to keep people in their little bubbles, and it was also used to pitch bubbles against each other. That was kind of the common accepted reality. Then suddenly religion re-enters the room, particularly out of the United States in the last sort of 15, 20 years. And we were asking these questions for the last probably 2 years. Why suddenly is Christianity all over the alternative media again? Well, I think we're finding the answer, because what it's doing is it's getting support for Israel based on that whole "I'm Christian, they're the chosen people" thing, which I don't think is an
Absolutely.
accident. Yeah, but let's watch this video, Rich, of Netanyahu talking about Iran and Trump.
I want to talk about the nuclear threat, and I want to talk about President Trump. You just said Iran tried to assassinate President Trump twice. Do you have intel that the assassination attempts on President Trump were directly from Iran?
Through proxies, yes. Through their intel, yes. They want to kill him. Look, he's enemy number one. He's a decisive leader. He never took the path that others took to try to bargain with him in a way that is weak, giving them basically a pathway to enrich uranium, which means a pathway to the bomb, padding it with billions and billions of dollars. He took up this fake agreement and basically tore it up. He killed Qasem Soleimani. He made it very clear, including now, you cannot have a nuclear weapon, which means you cannot enrich. He's been very forceful. So for them, he's enemy number one.
Yeah.
Look, they also tried to kill me, but I'm his junior partner. They understand that President Trump is a great threat to Iran's plans to weaponize nuclear weapons and use them.
When did you tell President Trump you were going to launch these strikes?
Look, I've been in constant contact with President Trump. We've known each other for many years. And obviously, we informed our American friends and President Trump, our great friend, ahead of time. We did. He knew about it, of course.
I mean, there were reports that President Trump kind of helped you achieve your strategic surprise by publicly urging you not to attack when he already knew you had decided to do it. So you were closely coordinating with the U.S. throughout this process.
Look, we're fully coordinated, but understand that America, under President Trump, will make the decisions that are best for America. And that's the way it is. He understands that I, as the Prime Minister of Israel, the one and only Jewish state, must make the decisions that are important for the survival of my country, and he will do what is best for America. That is a relationship of mutual respect and mutual confidence.
So, Rich, what do you get from that when you watch that video?
Well, the first thing I get is a very scared man hiding in Athens, apparently. In Athens at the moment, and I think there's video of him in Athens as opposed to just sitting in the studio. So they get that. He looks very pale. But really what I get is him trying to butter up even Donald Trump, using his ego. He knows he's in control of Trump, really, in terms of the hierarchy of the messianic lunatics. So he's trying to butter him up. Also, he's at the very same time trying to offset his own liability to Trump. Trump's higher than me. I'm just his junior. They want to go after Trump. Trump's such an amazing leader. They want him. They tried to assassinate him twice, which I've never seen any evidence for. And they tried to assassinate me, he says in there, but I'm just basically small fry compared to Trump. I mean, it's lunacy. Obviously, everything is inverted, satanically inverted. So I think it's a way of buttering up Trump, setting up Trump to take the fall, scapegoat, as we said before, bring in the Christians and bring in the Islamic faith and clash them all together. These aren't Christians. Like, I know Benjamin Netanyahu is not pretending to be a Christian, but Trump is not a Christian. He's a Zionist. And behind that, he's a Sabbatean, a cultist. And so is Putin probably. And so is Netanyahu. So I think they're just trying to just hang out Trump to dry and play to his ego for that point. But I see a very scared man that knows they don't have the weapons without Trump. And, in a way, Trump is more powerful right now than Netanyahu. But You don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and I don't think Trump really can do anything other than what he's told in terms of this hierarchy in the shadows.
See, I looked at it and I thought, because I try a little bit, Rich, sort of follow the subplot a little bit in lots of things. So I looked at it and I thought, right, what am I supposed to get from this? So you're right, he did look hella pale. It was with Fox News, but he was filming himself on a phone in selfie mode. It was very bad quality. I'm thinking, mate, you're in Greece. You're not in a tent in the middle of the Sahara Desert. It for me, I kind of looked at it and I thought, is this meant to look as desperate as it's coming across? And is it not instead maybe about planting a seed? So he's talking about Iran wanting to assassinate Donald Trump. Obviously, they've said before that they thought that the guy that apparently tried to kill him before was working on behalf of Iran. Well, if it's the guy we're told it was that shot at him and miraculously missed his ear that healed really quickly and all that sort of stuff, got lots of questions. Essentially the shot that got President Trump elected and legitimized him as anti-establishment. The guy, the greasy-haired guy that shot him, who appeared in BlackRock adverts and is clearly a very bad shot, is working on behalf of Iran. I'm not having it. I'm sorry, I'm not having it. And to be fair, when they claimed it, no one had it. No one had it. Not really. Only people that wanted to have it because they wanted an excuse to go to war with Iran. So your big pro-Israel accounts, they believed it. Of course they did, or at least they promoted it, but I don't believe it. But I wonder if it's about planting that seed so that if they do something to Trump, because if America isn't getting the support, say they sink the ship, say things happen like that, and the American public still aren't on board with going to war in the Middle East again. Another Iraq, another Afghanistan. Yeah. If they're not, I would not put it past them to kill Donald Trump. I wouldn't put it past them in the slightest, because even if you're in the club, you can still be sacrificed while being part of the club. You're there as long as you're useful. Once you cease to be useful, or once you're more useful dead, they will do that. And so I do wonder, Rich, and me and you have spoke about this before, about J.D. Vance, about the fact that for a vice president, I've never seen a vice president given more airtime than Vance, and given more credibility and column inches and camera time, screen time than J.D. Vance, who is way more connected in terms of the Palantir club than Trump is anyway. And I do wonder if they would take out Trump, blame it on Iran, get the consent from the American people to go in there, and then Vance takes over. Wouldn't shock me, mate. Call me a conspiracy theorist.
No, I think you're right, and I think they've got A, B, and C and D plans, and whichever way route. They don't just have one outcome; you'll have 6 or 7 different variants, and I assume that would be absolutely one of them. J.D. Vance was found by Peter Thiel, whilst he was studying at the university. Can't remember what university off the top of my head. Harvard, one of those ones. And Peter Thiel found him when he went and done lectures there, which was something that's happened. Dave Geffen used to do it. The CIA do it all the time. They go and look for students to basically manipulate. So J.D. Vance is a Thiel man, has been from day one. And he's put in there via Peter Thiel, who funded Donald Trump's first go in the office, and Musk funded his second. And Thiel and Trump, obviously, so Thiel and Musk started PayPal together and pretend to fall out and all of this nonsense. So clearly that's the intelligence behind him. Trump is, I would say, in the Freemasons. You've got the whole ritual when you go into the Masons. And we've all seen it with the leg up and the blindfold, and they do that ritual of, I think it's like cutting off your breast or something like that, of pain of death, of releasing secrets. So they know going in that, they're all sacrificial lambs anyway. They just take the money, take the fame, and, get bailed out by the Rothschilds and stuff like that. So he knew going in, they're all sacrificial lambs for people that we've possibly never heard of. As far as I can tell, I think you're looking at some black nobility families that are very hard to spell. And that's probably as far as I can find it up the chains, at least in this reality anyway. And these guys are all sacrificial for the final, and they all know it's for the greater good. That's what the cult is. It's a death cult. Ironically, they're terrified of death because they want to live forever, but these guys believe that actually they're sacrificing themselves. And part of that Kabbalistic belief that these guys have is that the husk is them that's trapping this divine spark within it. And when you look at the Statue of Liberty, you look at the memorials for Diana and JFK, they are that spark released. So they see it as much as the jihadists and guys that want to get virgins when they blow themselves up. These guys see them as releasing the divine spark within them, and actually going on to join the Iron Sof. It's all Kabbalistic madness. So they see it as repairing the world, they call it. And guys, have a look into this Lurianic Kabbalist stuff, because this is what they're doing. They think they're repairing the world. So they don't think they're dying. They think they're freeing themselves. It's insane, mate.
It's George W. bonkers. And also it's about, like we were saying at the very top, in terms of chess pieces being moved, sides picking, Pakistan's already come out on the side of Iran, and others will start to do different things. Mate, wait till China enters the room. That's when the game really gets started. Just finally though, Rich, on the subject of madness, this kind of ties in, I guess, to what we've been speaking out in terms of, World War III and all this kind of stuff. But it's also just bonkers, and it ties into climate change. So we've gone for a hat trick here. Britain's enemies could dim the sun and weaponize weather, right? I'll level with you, Rich. When I saw this on social media a couple of days ago, I went, oh, that's a wind-up. And I didn't look back at it because I thought it was parody. I thought someone was trying to be funny. You see quite a few little memes like that, don't you? Like it's a mock-up news story. I went, oh, yeah, well played. Oh, no, it's legit. Ministers are preparing for a scenario in which a hostile foreign power could weaponize sun-dimming technology, the Telegraph can disclose. A ministerial letter seen by the Telegraph states that the government wants to understand the risks of independent or third-party action deploying technologies to reflect sunlight away from the earth. Okay. Experts said these third-party actors could include countries that take drastic action to lower the carbon emissions. Oh, so suddenly lowering carbon's a bad thing now, is it? Thought we were going for net zero.
It's a sign of,
It's Twilight
it's a sign
Zone,
of
Rich.
terrorism now. It's a sign of terrorism now.
Here you go. Or hostile nations such as Russia. Oh, we've got Russia. I thought we'd forgotten about Russia for 5 minutes. Oh, no, sorry. No, Russia is still trying to kill everyone. Using solar geoengineering to orchestrate an environmental disaster against their enemies. Now, we've got to a point where the UK government, right, is concerned about a foreign nation using the technology that they themselves have just spent tens of millions of pounds of taxpayers' money to do to themselves.
I know. And if you look at the occult kind of connotations behind this, it's nonsense. And this is all about, in the end days, they will black out the sun. The sun will go dark for a certain amount of days. Can't remember the specifics. So this all ties into the end times thing. So this is really about putting these narratives out there. These are kind of Jungian kind of archetypes out there. That's not really about them dimming the sun. It's a nod and a wink that we're coming to the end times, as the sun will black out, that sort of thing. And also, you've got the moon cult and the sun cult. The sun cult is seen as the Western Rome, worshippers of the sun, Ra, and go back to Egypt. And then you've got the moon cult, which is this Kabbalistic Jewish cult. Really, it's not Jewish, it's Kabbalistic cult that worshipped Shekinah, who's the moon, and the moon doesn't have any light of its own because only can absorb the light of the sun and reflect it back on the earth, which is like the vampire myths, and all of this stuff comes into it. So that's part of this Kabbalistic coding. It's all about trying to reach into you at a soul level of an archetype. So when you get like storytelling, you only get a certain amount of stories, like the hero's journey. We all have these kind of inbuilt understandings of the world, and that's just to tap into that the sun will black out in the dark days and always dark before the light, and all of this Kabbalistic nonsense. So that's what, to me, when I read that, I just see that's just Kabbalistic coding nonsense about the dark before the dawn, darkness into light, the shimmer and darkness, and all of this nonsense. So I wouldn't take that as a literal thing, but again, in the Kabbalah, they have a practical Kabbalah. So when they literally try and do these things, and they have a mystical Kabbalah, so they could try to do it and try to be doing it on both accounts.
Well, to play into the whole energy thing, this was the joke that we were talking about, the fact they're spending billions on solar panels while spending millions on dimming the sun. Well, in terms of energy, though, we've seen it already. They're already talking about the fact that the price of petrol is going to skyrocket because of these attacks on Iran. And this is the other part of it. It's all well and good talking about how, we need to do this, we need to do that, we need to stop them having a nuclear weapon that apparently they've been weeks away from developing for about the last 50 years. Well, actually, you're using that excuse to destroy the general public through, the net zero stuff is the excuse to destroy the food security and energy security. Stopping Iran having a nuclear weapon that they've been weeks away for decades is also about destroying the energy infrastructure that therefore affects energy prices here in the UK and everywhere else in Europe. And it's already ridiculous. Like, people can't afford it as it is, and it's about to go even more insane, which is another reason why they will need a false flag almost certainly to garner public consent for any more wars in the Middle East, because people can see it affecting them at the fuel pump and they don't want it, and nor should they want it. And just finally, which actually is worth mentioning, because we were talking about would they take out would they take out Trump? Will they take out, this American aircraft carrier and all this kind of stuff? Well, almost certainly that they would absolutely do that if they had to. Another thing that's worth talking about, you've spoke about it several times, in terms of building the Solomon's Temple, the rebuilt Solomon's Temple, obviously on Temple Mount. What's sat on that is the Dome of the Rock and Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is a bit of a problem. What would it shock you if an Iranian missile accidentally hit Al-Aqsa Mosque or the Dome of the Rock? Would that shock you?
It shocked me that it hasn't already.
Yeah.
Shocked me that it hasn't already. Someone posted this last night, and I just retweeted it in terms of, I agree. It's how comes they haven't attacked the mosque yet? And that's the final stages of that coming down. I mean, that would kick it all off. And then you've got when the new temple goes up, the third temple, when there's a place called what is it in Saudi Arabia? I always forget the name. Begins with
Mecca
A.
or Medina?
No. Medina. Sorry, doesn't begin with A. Begins with M. Medina. Medina. Once that's sacked, then the Islamic faith see that as the end times and Armageddon coming in. So you've got these three faiths. That's why we see religion pushed up at the moment, because they are the three prongs that have been there to be clashed against each other in this end times nonsense narrative, fighting over the same texts, really, same biblical people that didn't probably exist. And we know this because, like, King Sargon's got the same been down the river in a basket story as Moses. How comes all these, unless it was something they just used to do on a weekend? I mean, these things didn't probably happen, but we're killing each other. And even if they did, stop killing each other. It's ridiculous. Exactly. So I'm surprised it hasn't happened yet, but that would be a big one. And let's blame it on Iran, when clearly it'd be, I mean, I think when you're looking at the top level of Iran, who's to say they're not playing their role in the bigger agenda?
Oh, I think they will be, mate. I think they will be. I think they all are. And you've made the point a couple of times here, which sums it up perfectly in terms of Netanyahu, who is just another player that in this club, essentially chucking a hand grenade into a room by attacking Iran and then jumping on a plane and flying off to Greece, so that the Israeli citizens who are in Tel Aviv and Haifa and everywhere else, they're the ones getting hit with the ballistic missiles. He's not. Netanyahu's tucking into a petty gyro. He's loving life. He set something up that now the Israeli people, those days of the king going over the top first, and with his sword drawn, are long gone. He's off to Greece now for a suntan and a pina colada. It's pathetic. Yeah. It's pathetic.
Well, he's just in a run up and booting the others over. He's literally like trying to get him over the American football goalpost. You go over there first, son. It's ridiculous. And he's gone. And so what they're doing now is attacking the people. And remember, and this never got much, and now we know why, public mainstream coverage is that tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of Israelis were protesting against Netanyahu and this decimation of genocide in Gaza. Now they're the ones taking the front of this.
Exactly. And they've been protesting against his corruption for well over a decade now. And you'll see this in Netanyahu's career. Because this is the thing, they say it's the only democracy in the Middle East. How long's Netanyahu been in charge? On and off? Since the 80s. This guy, every time he gets close to finally being ousted, he goes to war. Every single time. When he's low in the polls, he attacks Gaza. When he's low in the polls, he will fire at Syria or Lebanon or Yemen or, in this case, Iran. It's his go-to. Start a fight, and then make them believe I'm the only one that could protect them. Or from Greece. Mate, he's a coward.
Everything really,
just like they all are, mate.
Yeah.
Just like they all are. Anyway, we'll be back tomorrow again, won't we, Rich? Because Jay's on holiday, sunning it up. As always, Trending was brought to you in association with Iconic Coffee. If you head over to shop.iconic.com and use the code TRAINING, you get 10% off. Hopefully, when we come back tomorrow, it won't be any worse than it is now. But at the moment, you don't know, do you? I was saying today, like, of all the rabbit holes and all the tinfoil hat theories, I am rooting on the fact that nuclear weapons don't exist. That's my rabbit hole of choice at the minute. Because we're in bad times if they do.
Well, they do. Yeah, exactly. You'll be back this afternoon to give an update anyway, won't you, sir?
Oh, I will. Yeah, I'll be back this afternoon to give an update. Hopefully a positive, upbeat one, but I wouldn't hold your breath. To be honest. But I will endeavour to try and sugarcoat something for you. And until then, take care of yourselves. See ya.
Bye.